almost neutralize that technology.
Soldiers on the front lines are trying to cope with that new balance of power.
They have the same drones, we have the same drones. Like now, even going in a recon mission or as a sniper group, you always have to keep in mind that someone sees you. At the daytime, the daily drones. At nighttime, there are drones with thermovision.
According to military experts, neither Ukraine nor Russia has yet achieved air superiority. Since 2022, Ukraine has used 20 donated Mi-17 helicopters for troop transport and armed air support. Each one is worth about $18 million. The U.S. originally purchased these for Afghanistan, but once the country fell to the Taliban, the choppers were redirected to Ukraine. And these birds have a secret. They were manufactured by Kazan, a Russian company. Until recently, NATO hesitated to supply F-16 jets to Ukraine, fearing Russian escalation. That changed after the Defense Alliance's summit in July 2024. Now, Ukraine is set to receive 85 F-16s from multiple countries. Made by Lockheed Martin, F-16s cost between $14 and $18 million each. They've proven their worth over decades of combat and will be a big upgrade from Ukraine's mainly Soviet-era planes. At least one Ukrainian pilot compared flying an F-16 to upgrading from a Nokia to an iPhone. But there are problems. Ukraine's Air Force has only 20 pilots trained to fly an F-16. And according to experts, the planes require a lot of maintenance. Back on the ground, several manned vehicles are going toe-to-toe with Russian forces. The Bradley infantry fighting vehicle is quick, highly maneuverable, and can carry up to a half a dozen fully equipped soldiers. Ukrainians highly rate the estimated 300 of them they've received so far. In this video, released by Ukraine, a US-supplied M2 Bradley clashes head-on with a Russian armored personnel carrier. Ukrainian troops have reported that Russian soldiers are afraid of facing US-supplied Bradleys. As of spring 2024, for the first time, the US is supplying Ukraine with ATACMS, long-range missile systems that could be used to strike inside Russia's borders.
That went right to the president, and as you've heard, he's approved the use of our weapons for that purpose.
The exact number of ATACMS remains unknown, but the missiles cost about $1.4 million each. So how could these change the war? And how have they been performing so far?
HIMARS is a very specific and advanced multiple launcher rocket system. It is a MLRS that adds precision capability. So Smersh is one of the top MLRS systems that Russia has developed. It is the closest comparable to HIMARS. They're basically both truck-mounted rocket launchers. There's important differences in the way that they're used, and there's important differences in their capabilities. HIMARS generally fires three kinds of rockets: unitary warhead and area effects warhead. Those ranges are about 50 miles, and it's able to fire 6 of those at a time. There is also a way that instead of carrying six rockets, it carries one rocket. In this case, it's actually what's called tactical ballistic missile, known as ATACMS. And ATACMS has a 190-mile range. ATACMS is a much more expensive system. It's roughly $1.4 million per ATACMS, or the unitary warhead are just much cheaper. They're about $100,000 for each rocket. The BM-30 Smersh, with its unguided rockets, has a very similar range of about 43 miles. With its upgraded rockets, which are called Tornado S rockets, they are navigation system aided. Those have a range of about 74 miles. That exceeds the range of the comparable HIMARS unitary area effects warheads. Precision is a major differentiator in evaluating these systems. HIMARS is a highly precise system. It essentially has a evaluated accuracy within about 2 meters. You could target it for the front of a Humvee and it might hit the rear door. The BM-30 Smersh, with its upgraded rockets, which are called Tornado S rockets, the Russian manufacturer Rostec says that it's much more accurate than previously inertial navigation system guided rockets. Can we quantify that? No. We are only seeing some of the usage in Ukraine. It seems to be fairly limited usage. HIMARS has about a 4 to 5 minute reloading time. The way that crews typically operate, once they fire the rockets at a launch point, they are what's called shooting and scooting. So they are getting out of that area and they are likely going to a resupply point. In the case of HIMARS, it can either carry 1 ATACMS or it can carry 1 pod of 6 other rockets with shorter ranges. Those pods are basically moved all together in one piece. It's like moving like a pallet. That's done within about 4 to 5 minutes. The BM-30 Smersh relies on a servicing vehicle. That tends to take somewhere between 20 and 38 minutes to reload this. Part of the reason is that the servicing vehicle is loading in rockets one by one via a crane. So instead of moving 1 pallet like HIMARS, it's moving 12 individual rockets. The HIMARS system allows the crew to be much more efficient to be ready for that next fire mission sooner. The BM-30 Smersh has a top speed of about 37 miles per hour, and HIMARS has a speed of around 53 miles an hour. Part of the reason for that is that HIMARS is a lighter system. HIMARS only carries 6 rockets. The BM-30 carries 12 rockets, and so it's just a heavier truck. It carries a heavier load. These systems are not defined by ground speed. They're not tanks that are trying to shatter through lines or Bradley infantry fighting vehicles that are carrying troops. The speeds of the vehicles allow for more readiness to be ready for more missions. We don't see like direct video evidence that the HIMARS has come up directly against BM-30 MLRS. The U.S. has supplied 39 HIMARS launchers and the artillery, rocket artillery they need. They've been employed by Ukraine for 18 months. Russia's lost a huge number of MLRS, well over 300 different vehicles, and those include the BM-21. There are 2 BM-30 Smershes that have been destroyed. About 80 BM-27 Uragans have been destroyed. It seems like there's 2 things going on. The first comes down to the Russian satellite navigation system, GLONASS. We know that GLONASS is not as accurate as GPS. That may be contributing to the lack of observed pinpoint accuracy. It also is likely a failure of intelligence. The system of Russian targeting seems not to range much deeper than the Ukrainian front lines. Instead, Russia's mainly used its rockets as area attack weapons. Researchers have found evidence that the Russians fired them at volume into Kharkiv, the country's 2nd largest city. And this kind of encapsulates a Russian employment of MLRS. They use it primarily as an unguided brute force weapon. The Ukrainians are getting targets for HIMARS, sending it on fire missions that with the range, HIMARS can fire from a safe distance behind the front lines, and then it relocates, and the Russians haven't figured out an effective way to deal with that yet, and so essentially it's been operating with impunity. Don't expect HIMARS to be a wonder weapon any longer. There's growing signs that the Russians are jamming the GPS signals upon which HIMARS rounds depend for their pinpoint accuracy. The Ukrainians, with a much smaller artillery arsenal, depend on accuracy over the volume of fire that Russia can command.
The single most expensive weapon on this list is the MIM-104 Patriot air defense system. The $1 billion Patriot is a ground-based mobile surface-to-air missile battery that can down crewed and uncrewed aircraft, cruise, and ballistic missiles. So far, the U.S. has provided Ukraine with just one. But during its July 2024 summit, NATO announced it would be providing 4 more Patriot systems to Ukraine. Earlier in the year, President Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukraine needs at least 7 of them.